Hi, everybody. Welcome to the demo. I'm trying out this camera setup here. We've got the tricky challenge of having my face in here and showing the robots as well. So definitely, as we go along, send in questions, suggestions, anything. Definitely, the more interactive this is, the better. And so, yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. Can somebody send a message if you can hear me okay? Anybody, can you hear me? Okay, great. All right. So give me about 10 more seconds. I'm putting this on Facebook Live as well. I think we're good. Okay. Maybe that won't happen. All right, we'll get started. Okay, so this is Bots Alive. For those, I'll just assume you have not read all the details on on our Kickstarter website, and I'll kind of start from the top. So what we've done is we've taken these spiders that are made by Hexbug. It's a brand that's by the company Innovation First International. And these have sold maybe like 5 million or so over the past, I think, like 7 years. They're $25, and you can control them. Here, I'll just show you, although the phone will try to compete. So they're already being autonomously controlled, but if I do this, it shouldn't control it. So you just basically, here's the remote, and you can make them go forward or back or left or right. So forward and back. And I'm covering the marker so that that the smartphone can't see it and then try to control it itself. But these are the Hexbug spiders, and we're selling a kit for $35 that makes them come to life, gives them artificial intelligence that's organic and simple, but we hope that it'll feel alive to people. So I'll go ahead and demo how it works. We'll start out simple. So one robot, nothing around. Thanks, Jason and Arnold. All right, so when there's nothing out there other than the robot, it will just kind of explore. It just kind of roams around. I should also say the camera area that you can see is smaller than the area that the robot's phone can see, the phone that's its eyes and brains. And so I may have to keep it from walking off the edge of the table. These are meant to be primarily played with on the ground, although you could do what I'm doing, where you set up a barrier and have it on a table. We don't have any plans to detect ledges or anything like that, so it's something you probably want to have it on the ground. That's the more straightforward way to do it. Right, so you see it kind of explores around. That's one thing. Just kind of have it there, be alive, doing its thing. And then the next thing is there's these blue blocks here. These are target blocks. The robot likes to be near them. So if I put it over here, you'll see the robot make its way over to the blue block. And one thing that is important to me, and I hope will make this much more valuable than if we didn't have this, but the robot doesn't make a beeline to the blue block. It's not the kind of artificial intelligence that's cold and efficient and gets to the goal as fast as possible. Instead, you'll see it hesitate, look around a little bit, like it's curious. And in a moment, you'll see that it definitely makes mistakes from time to time. And I think all of these add to the power of the experience of kind of building a world for it. You really feel like there's a living creature, a simple one, but a living creature that is embodying the world that you create through these vision blocks. So these are the vision blocks, or that's the blue one. And I'll add a little bit. So here's the red. All the vision blocks other than the one blue are red. And these are, you can think of them as obstacle blocks. And the robot doesn't try to avoid them, so don't think of them like it's painful or anything like that. But rather think of them maybe as like heavy, as like the robot doesn't want to have to move them. So if I put the blue thing on the other side, the robot, it might nudge it. It might even push it a little bit. So you'll see it did push it just a little bit there. But it tends to want to get around it and not have to run through the red to get to its target of the blue. So I'll give it a little bit of time here. And you can also see that the more there are obstacles, the more hesitant the robot typically seems. So you can really see its kind of expressivity match the scenario that it's in. All right, so I'll make this a little more challenging. Add a few red blocks. And we'll give it a little bit of time to get around. Or maybe I'll just let it show that it can get around. We don't need to let it get all the way to the blue. When we had kids do playtesting with this, what they told us is, so one of the questions I would ask is, what toy, game, or animal is this most similar to? And that was the question I started asking near the end of playtesting. So I didn't get that many, but I think it was 4 kids. And I think 3 of the 4 actually chose an animal. One said it was like his pet turtle. One girl said that it was like a horse that I think like a kind of an agility. What are they called? Like agility course horse. I don't know what that's called, but the ones that run around and jumps and run around obstacles and so on. And that's really something that we were really excited to hear because that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping that this is, while it is a toy, we're hoping that it will feel like a really simple pet. Very much simpler and overall, to be straightforward, less fulfilling than having a dog or a cat. But maybe it'd be somewhat akin to having like a tarantula or a gerbil or something like that. Okay, so we've seen this kind of complexity. So I'll do something a little bit different here. Give a little bit of a road to go through, and we'll make it like kind of narrow here. So we got the blue over here, and let's see. This might be too narrow, but we'll see. There's a point where the robot decides that there's not actually a path. Okay, it's going around. We'll make it a little bit warmer, a little bit wider. So you can see also that when it does nudge into the red, sometimes it'll kind of look at them and back up. And I think it's up to the person watching to decide whether, what the robot's feeling, what the robot's thinking in a way. I often see it kind of as disgust almost, like it got too close to the red and it's just like, blah, like it's getting back. So now that I mentioned what the robot's thinking or what the robot's feeling, I feel like it's maybe worth talking about that a little bit. There are a lot of conversations about whether you should give robots gender, calling it a he or she versus it, whether you can say that it has feelings or not. And in my mind, it's not really a question, like, I guess I'm not actually concerned with the question of whether it has feelings. I think, no, it doesn't. But some things feel like they have feelings to us. So when you watch a cartoon, my favorite example is Toy Story 3, where the characters looked like they were about to get taken into this molten trash compactor. And when you see them, you know that they are just computer renderings, or an older cartoon, they're just drawings with voiceovers. There's nothing real about them. There's nothing real about their plight or their relationships or anything like that. But because there's a story and because there are all these things that feel real to us, it evokes real feelings in us, and we can simultaneously have that understanding that they're not real and yet still benefit from the emotional experience of feeling that they're real. And that's something that we're going for here. We're for, in my mind, one of the number one things that would make this a success, and I think this is happening to some degree, even in the prototype version. But one of the number one things that would make this a success would be if people feel that the robot has a positive experience when it gets things that it wants, that they feel that it's frustrated at times, that it's confused at times, maybe even like scared at some times. And even though they know it's not real, they feel that, and that colors and it makes more rewarding their experience of using it. Okay, so enough kind of abstract mumbo jumbo. Let's do a little more play patterns here. Okay, so here's another one. So I took the blue away, and I'm going to make a little home slash cage for the robot. And here in this case, when you do this, it'll actually stay there for a pretty long time, and it'll actually stay there for a pretty long time. But if and also I would say it does look a little bit anxious. We may dial that down in the final version, make it a little more comfortable, as if it's kind of its home or its crate that it likes being in. Or maybe there's a way to make it more contextual, where like sometimes it's comfortable and sometimes it's anxious. Okay, so if I stick the blue one over here, then typically, again, these are unpredictable, which is intentional. So I can't say what it will do, but typically it will very slowly push its way out of the cage to get to the blue. And one of the things I like about the way it pushes out is it usually will push out between the red blocks instead of pushing directly at one of the red blocks. But this might take too long to actually demonstrate. So actually, if there's 36 people on here from what it's showing me, if there are any questions, this would be a fantastic time. We could definitely fill some time and actually let the robot have the time to get out of its cage. But if there aren't any questions, I can move on and show something else. Oh, actually, I just realized there's a chat and a Q&A. Oh, great. Let's see. Okay, so Jason asked, what do you think about increasing the play area by having multiple phones set up within the with the app? Yeah, I think that's plausible. If that was something that it would take some extra engineering, but it's totally plausible. The phones would have to somehow be communicating with each other so that they're not both trying to command the robot, and they'd have to be communicating where these blocks are to each other, so that there's that bigger understanding of what's going on. But that's doable. I think the question would be whether enough people would want that and get value for us to take the time to make it so that phones can communicate, which might be pretty tricky. But one thing that I think is worth saying is that the actual area of play is quite a bit bigger than what you're seeing. So I can bring the robot outside here. This is the edge of the table, so I can't go any further. But you see it's definitely outside, and I can go further here. So there's quite a bit of range, and it only moves when it's being seen by the camera. So I think it could be, I can be seen back here. So it's just the limitation of this demo, and having two cameras, a camera where you can see me and the action, as well as the phone camera. that makes it so that it looks like a somewhat of a smaller play area than it really is. The higher you raise the phone, so if you found like a kitchen countertop rather than a table and put it on the edge of the countertop, the higher you go up, the bigger the frame is of the picture or of the camera. So the robot has a bigger play area. And if I remember correctly, it's roughly like my arm span, the biggest, before the system starts to like have too many errors to really be working the way you want. So it's a pretty large play area. Like I think maybe not my full arm span, but like this, like 4 feet or so, maybe even bigger. But yeah, I think like a system of phones that could like line your whole house and allow the robot just to live there, that would be pretty cool. Probably out of the scope of what we could do for this product. But I think there's something over on chat. I'm gonna jump over there. Oh yeah. Oh, great. So Brian Cutler had a similar question. Brian, if I didn't just answer your question, then ask it again and just clarify if there's additional information you'd like to hear. So yeah, so it looks like this time it actually did not bust out of its cage. We can see what happens if, let's say, we give it a little route here to get out. So this also could be a good time for me to talk about the artificial intelligence. The way that we build this artificial intelligence, the behavior of the robot and the personality of the robot, is through a new technique that when I was a researcher at the MIT Media Lab, I developed with a couple of collaborators. And in a sense, it's really a new application of a somewhat existing form of machine learning. Thanks a lot, Yashin. Really good to see you. Where was I going with that? Yeah, so it's this branch of machine learning, for anyone who might know, if this doesn't mean anything to you, don't worry, called learning from demonstration. And what we do is, instead of the normal way of creating an artificially intelligent character, where you hand code a set of rules, or maybe what's called a finite state machine, but you hand code the behavior. What we do instead is I, the developer, will teleoperate the robot. I'll control the robot through a computer, and we record all of my control. And so sometimes I'll have pushed forward, sometimes I'll have pushed left or right. Thanks, Brian. I'll answer in just a second. Push left or right. And so we also record the context in which I do that. So maybe if the blue block is straight ahead of the robot, it's more likely that I push forward, things like that. And then from all those recordings, all that data of how I teleoperated it in different situations, how I puppeteered it, we use machine learning to create a model that can say what I would do in any given situation. That model, of course, isn't going to be perfect, but what it does is, it can pick up on nuances that I wouldn't have thought of if I was writing rules. And there's this probabilistic aspect too, where even in the exact same situation, the model isn't going to say what I'm most likely to do. Instead, what it says is the probability that I would do one thing or another thing or another thing. And so one of the reasons the robot's so unpredictable is that in the same situation, there's a probability of it doing different things. And that comes straight out of it learning to copy my control. I think this might be a little too narrow for it to get to. So let's see. Brian had a question. The camera is mounted for side view versus top view. What about distortion of the patterns? Yeah, so one of the things that we're careful in the setup in the app, we tell people the camera works best at bird's eye view. So the closer you are to like 90 degrees, the better. But it gets close down to like 45 to still be working. So you don't want to hold it down here, but you could hold it like up here around it at like a diagonal, and that works pretty well. But typically you want it to be close to overhead. A little bit of angle doesn't seem to make any difference at all from being completely straight down or perpendicular with the ground. Cool, got it. But yeah, so side view is something that does skew these too much. They just they're too difficult to see, especially the robot. You can see because the robot's not actually fully flat on top. It looks like a normal square from straight on, which is what the software thinks it's supposed to look like. And then when we go like this, it starts to not really look like you can see the curve, and the curve affects it. And so the robot is actually the first thing to get lost as you bring the camera from above down to here. So Brian had another question. Oh yeah, so the AI, it's in a technical sense, it's random. But in the kind of the way we use random normally, it's not random in the sense that it's doing things that allow it to achieve goals. The probability of it doing one thing or another changes over time, changes based on its setup. And then the other part of your question is, does it learn over time? And so in the current version, it does not. In the current version, it has this like fairly complicated AI that is controlling it, but the AI itself, the model of the teleoperator, is not changing. However, in the final version, you will be able to teach it in some way. We haven't decided. We've got a number of candidates that we're excited about as ways of doing that, and we haven't decided which one to do. So I can't go into details because we actually just don't know yet the exact way that will allow you to teach it. So that'll be one way that it can learn over time. So yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. If anyone else has questions, please go ahead and shoot. All right, so the next thing we'll do here is add robot number 2. The smartphone kit does support 2 robots, as I mentioned, on the Kickstarter page. So we'll turn this guy off for a second and clear this out a little bit because it's getting a little messy with our play area. All right. So we just got 2 robot controlled by the phone working about a week ago. And right now, the robots they act as if the other one doesn't exist. So that's one of the kind of the next steps, is making them actually be able to like react to each other. But for now, we can see 1, that it works, and 2, we can see them kind of race to get to the goal. So we can do this a little bit, get it a little more visible, and then we'll bring these over here. So if I set these up, and see they've got different paths that are fastest for each of them, and then I can kind of let them go and see which one gets to the goal faster. And another thing we noticed with the kids playtesting is that when there were multiple kids, it seemed that this really did facilitate group play, these robots, because there's a robot, there's a bunch of building going on, creating these tests and brainstorming tests. All right, so the blue one. And with the 2 robots, which we haven't tested with kids yet, I expect there will be even much more group play facilitated, since each one can kind of claim a robot, and when they set up the race, kind of have one of them that they're rooting for, and maybe that they designed the pattern to try to help it go faster, or maybe they designed the obstacle course for the other one's robot, and see which one can win. So you'll see here, I'll actually show you the way they do not pay much attention to each other. I'll give them a chance to just run right into each other, which they will do. And one of the things I kind of like about this is, even though they're not really reacting to each other, there's still a sense that when I see them kind of like one of them run into the other one, it feels aggressive. It looks aggressive. And I think that speaks to why this, for me, is a part of why this is a rich play experience. That I think because these are simple toys, they don't talk, and in terms of what they can do, it's all movement. But because they're simple, they're somewhat a blank slate. So there's a lot of room for you to put story on top of them, and for you to justify what you're seeing through narrative, and through like narrative about relationships. And that's one of the reasons that that we hope that this toy will be appealing, not just to boys, but also to girls. So we got a question from Brian. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So right now I'm using a tripod mount, but that's only because I need the camera to be above a table. Otherwise, so normally I would have the phone propped up. So hold on a second. So right now, when we want to have hands-free play, the normal way is we use this this little foam wedge, which makes it really easy to set up a phone over the edge of the table, kind of like over here, and it looks down onto the ground. So the normal way to play would be to have the robots on the ground. But since I'm trying to have my face in the picture too, as awkward as this looks for me to be peeking out above the table, I think if I had to like stick my head on the ground, that'd be even worse. So that's the reason I'm using a tripod. You can see the tripod leg right here, and you can actually that is a legitimate way to play with it too. You can get a tripod for under $10 on Amazon, and it works really great with the system, but definitely not necessary. And then you had another question. Let's see. Oh, yeah, totally. Brian, I'm completely on board with what you're saying. So one of the things that that does a little bit, but we'll probably make it do a lot more, is do a little bit of like a dance, a little bit of a jig when it gets to the goal. So you can see when this orange one does do a little bit of turning left and turning right, but we can do more work to make that actually somewhat rhythmic and make it look like it's actually kind of boastfully dancing or celebrating in some way. I think that would be really nice to do that. I completely agree. Do this. So this might be a good time for me to say that if you're interested in pledging, we definitely appreciate any support. I know Brian already is a supporter, which is fantastic. And yeah, so we're past our goal. We got past the goal in the first 2 days, which is really amazing. And we were completely taken aback in a positive way by the level of support of our community. And what we're doing now, though, so that kind of makes it so that we can deliver these without losing money. And the farther we go forward in terms of the pledges, the more likely we can actually make a sustainable business out of creating these toys and moving them forward. Not just with this current product where we'll add social interaction with the robots. If we get to the 50,000, they'll sumo wrestle, the 50,000 stretch goal. And then also have them be teachable. But this is the beginning of something much bigger. At least that's my hope. And the support that we get from you guys, from our community, not only means that you get this really affordable and I think really fun and like compelling toy, but you're letting us move forward and keep doing this. Like my dream would be to keep building these towards more and more lifelike robot toys, including having them recharge themselves and have all sorts of other ways to interact with you and be something you would actually like really want to touch, things like that. Not to talk down the current version. But I think this is a really wonderful and engaging product, and there's also more that we would like to do after it. So any support is definitely much appreciated. Are there other questions? I think. I wanted to show one more thing actually. So, two more things. So I showed you all the things that we planned. That we planned to have kids do, all those play patterns. But there's a few things one thing the kids did that we didn't expect. So I'll get rid of one of these just to simplify. Actually, I'll turn them both off for a second. So the kids would stack these, which I thought was really interesting because if you look at the edge here, it's not built for stacking in any way whatsoever. But it kind of works out well because it's tricky. I gotta get up. So it's tricky to get them to stay on. But then once you do, it's pretty precarious. And that makes it so that they can easily get knocked down. So I'm gonna do the kind of wimpy version. I still can't do it. The kids that did this were doing 3 levels high, so 6 of these. I'm just gonna do 2 and hope that I can even do that. There we go. All right, we'll turn the robot back on. And the idea here is that the robot will do that. That basically you build these towers, you put the blue one on top, and then the robot wants to go to it, and it ends up knocking your tower over. And they actually they did a lot of different variants of this, and we're able to play with it for this group. It was like an hour and a half that they played before I called a stop to the playtesting session. So one other thing is this. If you're familiar with the idea of a mod, which is short for modification. This is a mod of the Hexbug spiders, and there's actually a really strong community around modifying these things, often much more deeply than we are in terms of actually changing the electronics and really doing some hands-on changes. Whereas all we're doing is adding this decal, and then all the other changes are external. So this is a mod kind of turned into a product. But you could also, where did I put my tape? Let's see. Oh, there we are. So here's another robot made by Hexbug. This is a Hexbug Nano. I've wrapped string around it, and then because I'm bad at knots, I put a little piece of tape to hold the string in place. And what we can do here is, that's probably too much tape. We can stick the Hexbug Nano on a red block. Yep, too much tape. There we go. On a red block. All right. And then we can turn this on. So, actually, let me just show you what they do when they're not tied. So here's Hexbug Nano. They're pretty cool. They only vibrate. That's all they do. And yet there's this randomness to their motion that makes them feel very alive. And if you've ever played with one of these with a dog or a cat, there's a good chance that they treated them like little bugs, like my dog used to. So really cool, cheap toy. And so we can use that as a random motion generator for this block. So let's say we do this. So you can imagine, so basically it's a way of making kind of a moving obstacle course for the robot, which is pretty fun. Do this again. We'll turn that off. So yeah, I think the overall idea here is that there's a lot you can do. That these are vision blocks in a way. I mean, I think we're misusing the word block a little bit, but they can be stacked. They can be attached to things that are moving, and as long as they stay underneath the camera, so you could create a perimeter through blocks or whatever. As long as they stay in the camera, then they become this kind of moving, changing world for the robot to act within. And not only through the ways that we plan for people to, like the ways that we plan for people to interact with this, I think really facilitates some creative and free play and some concentrated play as kids make these tests for the robots. But then there's also a lot of ways to innovate and find kind of extra features that we're not really even planning to, that we didn't explicitly plan for. And thanks, Brian. Yeah, it's a good question, Brian. We do need to share this. We've been sharing it quite a bit, but I don't think we've targeted school robot clubs. If you know of any, I mean, I guess you're asking because you don't know of any, but if you do know of a good place to share, that'd be great to hear. All right, so I think that's all the content that I have for today. One idea, I can't make a promise that this will work, but I'm just curious whether people would be interested in this. So given that the robots don't react to each other yet, and that we need to build that in their behavior, I could do a session where I show you how I create their behavior. So I would control them and have them interact with each other, and then we could see that once I give them those demonstrations, show them how they should interact with each other, that they'll start to do that, and that'll then be in their behavior. So I'd be curious through chat if that is something that would be valuable to people. That would be interesting to see me use machine learning and demonstrations to create kind of a new facet to what these things can do. I could set that up as a Kickstarter live session. And then also, since we're nearing the end, any questions anyone has, this is a great time. And again, if you're interested in this, we'd love to have your support to really make this into something we can continue to build on and move towards even second and third products. So I'll give a moment to see if there's any questions, and then I'll sign off and then also I guess so I know some people came later. So if there's anything anyone wants to see, just go ahead and put it on chat or in the Q&A section. Brian, yeah, so you can see, let's see, I put it on Twitter and Facebook, but also if you go to if there's a Kickstarter live event coming up in the next 48 hours, it'll be, thanks, Brian, it'll be posted at the top of the Kickstarter landing page. This is actually, now I remember why I turned it off, because it's loud. Yeah, so it's at the top of the Kickstarter landing page, and there's a button where you can subscribe. So if you guys enjoyed this, then and you want to see future versions of it, you can subscribe to our Kickstarter live stream. And I might do these daily or every other day, and some of them will be repeated content, but I'll also try to find some new angles to make it interesting for the people who've come before already. So yeah, so you can click subscribe to that. Reading Arnold's comment. Awesome. Thanks, Arnold. I really appreciate you saying that. Take care. All right. If there's no further questions, then I'll go ahead and sign off. Anything else? All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And yeah, so I've been thrilled with the support so far from you guys, from the Kickstarter community and the broader community. I don't know if any family or friends are watching, but their support, especially in the first couple of days, is super meaningful, and we're really grateful for that. So yeah, so thanks a lot for joining, and possibly I'll see you next time. All right, take care.